Hey, Danny.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I am in a place of excitement, actually.
I am too. I am too. I am ready for all the things to come in 2024. I know, like
Mhm.
they say, every year is your year, but like every year really do be my year for the most part. So I like to just go in with that same energy so I can keep getting the results. Because if you don't believe it, then it's not going to happen. It's like everyone wants to shame you for everything. Like, look, people, if you are going to start the gym, if you're going to start a diet, if you're going to fast, like, don't let people make you feel stupid or lame or like a follower for jumping off the year, doing something good for yourself. Like, now people make fun of you, like, oh, let me guess you're going to start the gym. Yes, I am. And you should too. Right? Like, don't make people feel bad. But, anyways, we're going to jump right into the episode. I'm so excited for this episode. And one of my favorite quotes that that I've actually heard before, but it was nice to just see it again, is from
Mhm.
Nidra Glover Tawwab. She is a psychologist. I believe is she just a therapist or is she actually a psychologist? I think she is.
I believe she's a
I
psychologist.
think she's a psychologist, right? I am an Insta fan of hers and have been for years. So I just love whenever we can speak about her and just have other people know about her as well because she's phenomenal. But the
Yeah.
quote of the week is the ability to say no to yourself is a gift. If you can resist your urges, change your habits, and say yes to only what you deem truly meaningful, you'll be practicing healthy self boundaries. It's your responsibility to care for yourself without excuses. Mm.
Mm. It's the responsibility for me, personal responsibility.
Yes, we always talk about putting boundaries on everybody else. What about the boundaries within yourself to honor the things you tell yourself?
What about that? Okay. I'm a firm believer in personal accountability. It is one of the things I feel like not enough of us take ownership and stock in, but you are responsible for you. That's it. And
That
that's
is true.
also too why, which is our dating well AF tip of the day or of the week more so. We're going to do of the week. But our dating well AF tip of the week is when people show you who they are, believe them the first time. Believe them the first time. And here's the thing, too, I feel like about that belief you believing them the first time in no way means that you're saying that this person is just a spawn of Satan and deserves no grace.
Or
What
cutting
you're,
them off. Yeah, I agree.
yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that. It means I am honoring that, hey, this is maybe something that you struggle with. So since I know that this is a struggle, I can either decide to have the conversation with you, keep my eyes peeled for it for when it comes into my sphere or in my universe, or I have to interact with this part of you that I may or may not have the patience, tolerance, or like to deal with. If I know this and I'm honoring and acknowledging, hey, this is who you are, I can then make the necessary adjustments so that I'm not either hurt or put in a position to where I don't have to respond out of character because I didn't acknowledge and honor that this is who you are.
Yeah, and it's just like sometimes just make the mental note. Like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so you don't see it and ignore it or try to make it something else. Take it for exactly what it is. Make a mental note of it so that, like Alicia says, you know how to adjust and move accordingly, as opposed to trying to convince yourself that you can change that person or it's not what you thought it was. Like, trust your gut, trust your intuition, trust your experience and your knowledge of just how people are to understand that when this behavior occurs, it usually means this. A plus B is C, like every time, right? But there are variables in there that you do have to consider. So I love that quote, and it's something I take with me all the time, especially the first time part. Because sometimes, y'all, we had let people show us one too many times before we actually decide to do something when they showed you the first time. And it was very obvious and plain as day the first time. So I'm definitely a proponent of I'm gonna believe you today, okay, the first time. And our pop culture segment for today comes from our fave, Miss Taraji P. Henson, who has been doing press for the movie The Color Purple. And
Mm-hmm.
we have just been hearing all the things from Miss Taraji. Like she is just spilling all the tea about the inequity and how difficult it is for Black women in Hollywood to get their just due. Like That is a thing that has been happening. And she's been very vocal about just how underpaid she has been, despite of her raving performances, despite of her being in movies that
Yeah.
gross very well, box office hits. Even in the movie The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, which she was nominated for a Best Supporting Actress award. Okay. And for that movie, she got paid $150,000, while her co-star, Mr. Brad Pitt, got paid about $15 million. So I mean, it's like literally a fraction. It's not like these people are complaining about not making a couple million less. Like that is a very big disparity. And I just am happy and pleased that Black women like Taraji, like Gabrielle Union, like Monique are speaking up now and talking about just how undervalued and underpaid they have been in Hollywood for all these years.
And yet their talent is always requested, or you have other characters who will literally play to the Black experience, or pull from some of the stereotypes to play the characters that they're paid multiple times over. Viola Davis said it too. She's like, I've got all the awards, you say I'm the next Meryl Streep, okay, bet, pay me like it. Pay
Hmm.
me like it. If you say that I am all this and I am this good, cool. Thank you so much. Your words mean very little when the pay is not commensurate. Like equality is cool and all, but equity is so much better. Pay me
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah, it's
So
why I'm not like a feminist. And I mean just feminist as part of the feminist movement, because I just
mhm.
don't feel like the feminist movement really includes Black women, because it's just like I get that it seems like we're all grouped together because we'll always come in and support it, right?
Yeah.
Like when was it Sojourner Harriet Tubman? Say, ain't I a woman? Is that Harriet Tubman?
Ain't I a woman?
Ain't I a
No, I think
woman,
that
right?
was Sojourner Truth, but
Or
don't
was it
quote me,
Sojourner
y'all.
Truth? It's one of them, child. Excuse our lack of Black history knowledge right now. I think it was Sojourner
Sojourner
Truth.
Truth.
It
Yes,
was
definitely
Sojourner Truth.
Sojourner
Yeah, I was
Truth.
like, it's not Harriet. And Ain't I a Woman? And that has been a permeating kind of theme throughout the
Mhm.
history of the feminist movement, is like white women didn't want to conflate their issues with Black issues because
Yeah.
they felt it would slow down their own progress. And we can still see that happening today, where these white women are getting their just due and they are getting paid and they are standing up for each other. So that's why I said I'm just so happy to see Black women now doing the same. Gabrielle Union even talked about how her and some actresses kind of finagled and finessed the system a little bit, where one was being offered an amount for something and they all agreed to turn it down until they got the amount, whoever got it. Like it didn't matter to
Yeah.
them who got the role, it mattered that that person got the money that they deserved. So
Yes.
whenever they went to the next Black actress and the next Black actress, because there's so few of them, they all decided to turn down the role. And I think if I'm retelling the story properly, it ended up coming right back to the original actress, and she ended up getting paid way more than she had initially negotiated. So it's that kind of togetherness and that kind of camaraderie and community that we need more of in every industry, so that we can help each other up the totem pole. But because of our circumstances, we're going to have to pull each other up one rung at a time. And I was
Yeah.
really pleased, and it warmed my heart to see that happening in our community on that level.
Absolutely, because it's in every industry. On average, Black women are paid 64% of what white men are paid. And if, let's say, we decide to go back to the initial um, uh, portion of this when we were talking about Taraji, and what she made in the Curious Case of Benjamin Button, 150K to 15 million. Yo, that is way more than the average 64%. Or like she got paid
Disparity, yeah.
far less. At this
Yeah.
stage in the game, we will have to understand that, hey, banding together and having a collective resounding no, we're not
Definitely.
going to take this, or I am not accepting this, is what it will have to be to move us all forward.
Yep.
Listen, we are loving these segments with y'all. We are absolutely enjoying them. Please let us know how you are enjoying them too. And we will see you in the episode.
Today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yes. And can we just talk about this view in the background for anyone that's watching? Yes, view. Where are you? Where are you located?
I am fortunately in San Diego, California, and it's
Oh,
a beautiful day today. Yeah.
it looks like it. Yes. I'm just like, wow, it is giving. The view is giving like vacation. Like I need, well, I'm actually in warmer weather too. I'm in Miami, Florida. So
Okay.
I'm actually the beneficiary of some good weather today as well.
Yes. Yes. We'll take it.
Alicia can live vicariously through us because she's in cold ass New York. So so we want to dive right in so that we can respect your time because this is such what I know will be a very powerful conversation.
Mm.
And I just want to thank you so much for our just already thank you in advance for sharing with us and giving us this time just to learn more about your story and the work that you do because it is impactful, groundbreaking work. So we're really, really excited to jump into the conversation. But one of the questions that we ask all of our guests, it's like an honorary Triggered AF podcast question, is outside of all the titles and the accolades and everything, then all the hats that you wear, right? We're just talking about hats. Who do you say that you are?
I say that I'm like a lover of life. Like I love what life has to offer and all the gifts that we've been given and all the experiences
Yeah.
we get to have. And because of like my high level of empathy, I just want other people to experience that, especially because I've been at such a low place in my life and that being so foreign, I
Hmm.
believe other people can get there too. And so now I just want other people to love life as much as I do. So
I like that. A lover of life. I mean, if you're not loving life, what are you doing? Like
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly. What are we doing? Because we really and truly only get this one life that we have. So ensuring that you're loving your life through all the things is incredibly important. And which is also too why this conversation is so important as well. Because there are a lot of things that people don't see. And especially for those who have experienced so much trauma or they've had to grow through so many uncomfortable situations and experiences, I wanted to kind of just dive right in to find out, what do you believe are some of those unforeseen ramifications of women who experience the level of trauma and even abuse that you have experienced?
I mean, one of the things I learned, and your entire show is about it, is those triggers where you have issues in your relationships because of the triggers that manifest themselves as a result of your past trauma.
mm,
And you don't even know that's what's actually happening. It's easy to put blame on others and the outside surrounding that you believe is causing it, but it's underlying. It's from the past sexual abuse and the trauma that you experienced. So I think that's an unfortunate circumstance. The other unfortunate circumstance from sexual trauma, even though you can be functioning and you can move on, function in life, and um, is the effects on your body. When you try to push something away, it's the effects on your own body that start manifesting themselves
mm.
because you haven't addressed the past trauma. Um, the other thing that happens for somebody who has been sexually abused is that it happens again. You're more likely for that same occurrence to happen again because people who prey on women, I don't know how they know, but there's some sign, and those are the people that they start grooming. So that's another unfortunate consequence. For me, it's resulted in PTSD, the triggers that manifest themselves, and for me, it's manifested in my body, and that feeling of just like being alone. And that's why I think the conversation is so important because it's so prevalent, and if to know that like you're not alone in feeling these ways, you're not alone in having the experience you had. So,
Yeah, I've always thought that was so interesting when you hear people who are brave enough to share their stories, and thank you for sharing that. When you hear people who are brave enough to share their stories, it typically is multiple abusers. And it's just like, how does that, it seems like something that should be such a one off and such a rarity and such a like, But then most times it is like, oh, it happened at this age with this person, and that age with that person, and this age with that person. And it's just like, we know, what is it that they sense, or what is it that what kind of energy, what kind of energy is is created. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know what the word is, but it's like, how, like you said, like, you don't know how they sense that, but there must be something energetically that is produced from that kind of trauma, that kind of gives, I don't know, just something. And I never want to put it on the victim, but it's like, what is it? Because I've always found that really fascinating and heartbreaking, that it's multiple, that it could be multiple abusers in someone's lifetime, because it just seems like they prey on, once they find out you've been abused. And sometimes, I know one scenario that I've heard was they were sharing a story with someone they thought they could trust, and that person just ended up abusing them because now they knew that, they knew that information. So that I know that happens, but it's really, really unfortunate. And the other thing is, I recently read an article about a study that was linking fibroids to childhood sexual trauma, which was fibroids is something that is like plaguing Black women. We are disproportionately affected by fibroids. And they've just, I mean, there are now a lot of new studies on it. And one of the things that it's being linked to is childhood abuse, childhood sexual abuse in particular. So,
That is so interesting. I would love to hear that study, because my family, who suffered a lot of childhood abuse, all the women suffer from fibroids.
stop it. Yeah.
I swear to God. I know,
Right.
that's so crazy that there's a study about that.
Yes. Someone
Wow.
on my Instagram who had a myomectomy last year was speaking about her procedure, and she's been very open about her journey because she's very into fitness and health. And it was just like, and she talked about her journey with fibroids. And, that was one of the things that she brought up. So I was like, what? And then I went to look into it, and there was some research on it. So yeah, it does affect the body. It manifests in so many different ways. And I think oftentimes people are just thinking about the act, but not all the subsequent ramifications of that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. The fibroids is really interesting because I agree. When you keep it inside, it does affect your body. I didn't know there was a study exactly linked to that says that for that particular, I know about like the autoimmune diseases, right? Because
Oh, really? Is that something too?
it is autoimmune diseases being linked to childhood trauma, because it's like you're trying to repress it and it's your body fighting against itself, which is what the autoimmune is. You're just
Whoa.
fighting.
And women are disproportionately affected by autoimmune disease in our society.
Correct.
Whoa. I didn't know that. I knew about the autoimmune diseases affecting women far more than it does men, but I didn't know, because I'm assuming that there's something within our wombs, right? Like there's something that happens in our womb when that kind of trauma happens. I mean, I'm not a scientist or a doctor, but I just think as women, our wombs are not protected enough, Not only is there obviously ramifications within your body, like we talked about the autoimmune diseases, we talked about fibroids, you talk about PTSD. Studies have linked it to alcohol, more of a chance of getting into alcoholism, drug use, depression. I mean, there's just all sorts of side effects and things that come up from that. But one of the things many people are afraid to even speak out is because of the negative fallout that may come from speaking against their abusers. Like, you are trying to seek help, you're trying to, get some sense of justice for yourself. And even that can lead to more abuse or more shame or more guilt. And a lot of times that will keep people quiet, especially if they have made any attempts to tell an adult or tell someone that they trust, and the response is not the best. It makes them even more afraid to speak up. So what additional support do you believe women and even children should have when they decide to speak out? Like, how can they safeguard themselves so that they can speak out and start to release some of that and deal with some of the fallout that may come from their community or their family?
I think having that community of people that are supporting you is super important, whether whoever that may be. For me, it was having my husband who's super supportive, of me speaking out. I have a therapist who's super supportive of me speaking out. I have like my team at the office, who is supportive of me speaking out. So it's just, and friends, obviously my good friends who are supportive of it. So I have like a team of people that support me, knowing it's going to be really hard. For my clients that come forward, for the women that have been sexually assaulted and abused, when they come forward, they have the team of my law firm, right? So they have their lawyers who are standing up with them, helping them stand up for themselves. They have a therapist that they work with, who are helping them. And yeah, some family members will support them and some will not. And so that's what makes it really hard, because the people that sometimes you think are going to support you may not. But you shouldn't be, I guess, disheartened by that, because there's many people that will. So it's just finding the people that will stand behind you when you come forward. Because by keeping it inside and not saying anything, the only person you're harming is yourself, and you've already been harmed, right? You've already been traumatized. You're just continuing that pattern, and you're continuing to make things worse by keeping it inside. When you don't speak out, the only person you're harming is yourself, and the person you're protecting by not speaking out is the abuser. You're continuing to let that person get away with it and do it again. And I believe for us to change the stats being 50% of women are sexually assaulted in their lifetime. And I personally believe that number is higher, right? There's a underreporting that happens. But when you think of that number being so high, for us to change that stat, for us to have it be different for our daughters, is we have to start talking about it.
What was like the catalyst for you to even want to start? Because you're talking about your husband now, and the friends that you've curated that will now support you. But what about before you even get to that stage? What about for children or for people who are in spaces and environments where they can't build the support that you've been able to build as a woman, now as an adult, where you can create the community? What if you don't have the community? Like, how did you get to that space? What was the inspiration to be like, what, now it's time to tell my story?
Yeah, so when I was a child, the first person that I was molested by was a cousin, and I did speak out. I did say something of what he did, but the way the family dealt with it was just to dismiss it, like, he had spilled a cup of coffee, and we'll just move on from it.
Can we talk about that before? And let's remember the original question. But I think that is so important, because I saw and I grew up around a lot of sexual trauma. My grandfather was a child molester, so I'm very informed about.
So was mine. Mine was
Yeah.
also a child molester.
Yeah. So, and I'm in Jamaica, especially in islands. It just seems to run rampant, especially child sexual abuse. But the piece of the response is just so important and crucial to the victim. And I feel like so many people drop the ball when it comes to how they respond to children who are are so brave. Like, when you're a child and you're brave enough to try to speak up for yourself, and the adults, the people that you're looking to protect you, dismiss you, what can you talk a little bit about like what that did to you and how that made you feel about yourself?
So what it did to me was I believed it didn't matter. Like, I got molested by my cousin. Yes, he doesn't have to live in our house anymore, but everybody will still continue celebrating him, talking to him, like
being around him. Right.
And so that really, it makes you believe you're the problem, right? It was something that you did, and what he did wasn't a big deal. It's not that important. You just need to move on from it, because everybody dismissed it. And so then, when it happens again, you take it on yourself. Like, I'm the problem. I'm the dirty one. I should be ashamed for having that happen to me. So I think by ignoring it when somebody comes forward and dismissing it, you're re-traumatizing the person again. And especially children who need to be trusted. Like, when they're not trusted or believed and told to forget about it, they just continue to internalize it even more. So it just furthers the abuse.
For sure. And I also, one of the things that I've noticed is it creates this kind of like shame for the adults. So I think that's why they dismiss it, because they're so embarrassed that they allowed or they didn't protect their children enough. So it's just easier for them to just dismiss it and act like it didn't happen. But I would go out on a limb to say that if the response were different and the response were healthy in protection of the child, in absolute protection of the child, I'm sure the trauma could be soothed better, quicker,
Right.
like deeper. Like if you tell someone and they respond, I think half of the journey is the response that didn't come,
Right.
like I
And we're
remember,
re-traumatizing them. That's the point. It's like the trauma
yeah,
occurred, and now you're causing further
you're
trauma.
like
You're
twisting the
re-trauma.
knife.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like, wow, like how many people would have a more fighting chance to heal and to move through the trauma and come out on the other side a healthier person if they got the right response from the adults. Like I
Right.
feel like we focus so much on the actual abuser
Right.
and not on the response of the people who endorse without knowing, and they enable these abusers. Like that is a conversation. Like
Oh, I
that's a
agree.
problem.
I mean, the next person, my father molested me. My mom knows about it, and she says stay silent. I mean, to me, that has also caused a huge source of problems in my life. When I was
Yes.
young, I used to have a lot of empathy for my mom. Like, well, she's also, in this situation with my dad, and she had an arranged marriage, and she was young, and she didn't have a choice. And I'm empathetic to, was super empathetic to that, and not angry. But when I
Yeah.
had my own daughter, it made me angry. Like that she never
Right.
said anything. She didn't stand up for me. Like had she protected me, at least I would have had that on my corner. But there was
Yeah.
nobody to protect you. Like all the adults that you're supposed to trust, and there are the people that are supposed to be protecting you and building you up, are not only the ones abusing you, but then the other group of them are just not doing anything about it when they're knowing what's going on.
Yeah. And that goes back to what you said about triggers.
Yeah. Yes.
Like that's really what it's like. You have a child and you're like, wait, I feel like this about my child. I would kill somebody if that happened to my child. Okay.
Yep.
How could you not feel this strongly about me to want to protect me
Yeah.
and to make sure that I feel so loved and so protected moving forward? Like I really just wanted to harp on that a little bit about the importance of the response of the adult that the child trusts is so crucial, and I think it makes or breaks what happens next.
I agree. I agree.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's so unfortunate too, because as women, we're conditioned to shut up. We're not necessarily told to shut up. We are conditioned to do so. We're conditioned to shut up and also to protect those who abuse us. I remember, like I said, my entire childhood was marred with abuse, from physical abuse to sexual abuse of those who I was in close, intimate relationships with, financial abuse. There was just so much abuse, and it seemed like nobody cared. Like, okay, this is how we do things. You shut up, you take it, you make it out, and you don't come back. And so with that conditioning, like, I would love to know from you. I know what inspired me to start speaking out and share my experience more openly. And it has not come without its drawbacks and without its consequences. But what inspired you to speak out? And then what would you say to women who are afraid to do so?
So for me, my inspiration really came from my clients and their bravery. Like the people that come forward to me have to share their stories, and then in a public document, they have to bear it, and then they have to be cross-examined about it. And I wanted them to know that I stand with them. I think they are so brave for doing so. And I didn't file a lawsuit against my dad or my cousin, but I wanted to know that I can do it too. Like I will share my story as well. So they're the ones who inspired me. And then seeing by them speaking out the empowerment that they go through, right? Like it's not, they are left better by taking a stand for themselves than they started. And so knowing that, and I have felt that as well. You're right. There are some consequences that, arise as a result of making your abuse public, but there is also a freeing of it, right? There's no longer anything that you don't know about me that you can use against me or hold, over me. For people who are scared to speak out, what what I say is like, there are so many laws that protect you. We live in a society where it is condemned at every level, right? There's nothing that says this is permitted. So sometimes it feels like there is no protections. Every law that is written is there to protect you. And I can tell you that women are winning in these cases. I can tell you that there are a number of people that will support you when you're ready to stand up for yourself. So it's scary, but once you take the first step, you'll realize how much of a community of support you will have.
And what, I know you just answered what inspired you to speak up, but what, if you have been, what kind of inspired you, or what was a catalyst for your journey on to healing and to growing from that trauma, if any? I'm just
Yeah.
assuming here that you've done some work.
Yes, I've done a lot of work, right? Like it's not, and that's the thing. It's like it doesn't happen overnight. I've been on a very long path for healing. But for me, it started with wanting to be a better wife to my husband. Like I was triggered constantly, and he is really the most patient, sweet man. We've been together. It'll be 28 years in March, and I was just constantly triggered by him. So he's this really patient, kind individual, and I would think he was either trying to control me, or if he was lying to me, just by the way he looked or something he said, I would go off on him. And in a moment of couples therapy, when we hit like a low, he told me he was scared of me, and that just blew me away, because I was the terrified one. I wasn't the scary one, and that was like very shocking. But it was scary. Like he never knew if I was going to go off on him or not. Like he didn't know what was going to trigger me, and wanting to be a better wife for him really started me on that path. And then when my daughter was born, she's 11 now, when she was born, wanting to be a better mother to her. Like her cries would trigger me. Like my skin would crawl. Like I felt uncomfortable being with her when she was naked, because I was so worried that I was going to be an abuser because I was abused. And so
that's something that's so interesting. You felt like you would be an abuser. What is that common? Is that a common?
Well, I just thought it was genetic. Like, okay, if my cousin abused me and my dad abused me, it must be in the blood, and like maybe I'm going to do it too. And then how do I know if I am abusing her? Like it was messed up. So there was it was messed up, and like not wanting those thoughts to like permeate my relationship. And so my next why was like wanting to be better for her. And so that's when I first started therapy. Yeah. And I really thought like I'd go to therapy. All right, we're going to get 4 sessions. You're going to fix this. We're going to get it all. I'm fixed, and it's going to be good,
Great.
I'll be talking to him later today, so it doesn't work like that, but it was super helpful and to recognize where things were coming from. So that's how it started. It was really wanting to be better for the people that I love the most, and not wanting to pass on the generational trauma that has existed to my daughter. Has really prompted me on the journey. And there's done a lot of different things with therapy and coaches, energy work, really understanding the connection, the mind-body connection, and absorbing, a lot of the past traumas, which is, the culmination is now writing the book about the trauma. But it was a long path to get there.
I know. We interrupted at the best part, but hear me out.
Dating should not be this hard. Let's be honest. We've all said it at least once that the dating pool has pee in it.
It has to. After dozens of dates, too many failed relationships, engagements, marriages, and even a divorce, we decided it was crucial that we find ways to be better at attracting the partners that we desire. So we did just that, and we created the Dating Well AF course.
It's specifically designed to show women how to date with intention and in alignment with their desired type of lifestyle and experience. The 5-module crash course developed by certified coaches Alicia and Danny provides practical tools to date well and live even better.
So I want you to register now for lifetime access to the Dating Well AF course at datingwellaf.com. You will tap all the way in to learn how to identify those self-sabotaging behaviors, discover new ways to date intentionally, and to nurture that healthy love.
Remember, one of the most important life decisions you'll ever make is who you decide to make your partner. Make the choice well and visit datingwellaf.com.
Now, back to the episode. You're not alone in that, wondering if you're going to be an abuser too. That was something that terrified me when I first had my daughter, and I've actually never said it out loud. So kudos to you for even bringing this part out of me. Apart from the trauma of bringing her into the world, I was terrified that I would hurt her the way I had seen so many people hurt children in how I grew up. And so I didn't want to love her too much or touch her too much because I didn't want to hurt her, because I saw firsthand what the impact of hurting children caused. And so I wanted to keep like a bridge, like this was her, this was me, and there was always a bridge or some spacing so that I would not cause too much damage to her. And I've never heard anyone else say that they were afraid that they would hurt their child because of their own experiences. Even now to this day, I don't want to be alone with a child. I have no desire, because I just never want there to ever be the appearance. I know I'm not interested in children. Children do absolutely nothing for me. But I never want it to be the appearance. And I'm so vigilant about that with everything, even with my partners, or like my friends' husbands or things like that. Like, no, I want you to know for sure, like, hey, this is a line I will never cross. This is a boundary for me, because I saw boundaries so disrespected as I was growing up, that it matters to me that the integrity, that the character is there. So to hear you talk and say that you were afraid that you would have that in you too, with it being genetic, it brought, it kind of made me almost cry a little bit. And I don't usually cry on in these conversations, because we've had some pretty deep, and touching and even triggering conversations. But to hear that, it was like, whoa, I'm not the only person. And that's also too why I feel these conversations are so important, to let you know you're not alone.
Yeah, I've actually seen that. I've read that. So I'm in like mom groups, like, on Facebook, and the topic of child sexual abuse comes up a lot. And I actually did read women saying that they were having a hard time connecting with their children because they were sexually abused as children. They felt like they may do the same thing. Because there are some studies that show that if you have been sexually abused, it is likely for you to abuse somebody else. And then you have like the other spectrum of that, where like you didn't want to connect. Alicia, I feel like I'm overprotective of my daughters, like to the point where I think it's not like healthy. Like I feel paranoia. My grandfather was a child molester. I have other men in my family who were sexual abusers. It's just, something in Jamaican culture that's just, you can't really meet a woman. That's why I agree with you. It's way more than 50%. Because if I line up 10 women that I know, more than 5 of them were sexually assaulted as children. So I have like the other, like, super overprotective, like, I don't want them, like, my children have never slept in anyone's house. I don't know if they ever will. I don't want to leave them with nobody. And then, like, I think of, like, if I leave them at your house and then someone comes to visit you at your house, like, I go down like a rabbit hole. And for me, like, I'm okay with being this paranoid because I think it's better safe than sorry. But I would love for you to share before we wrap up and get to our last question. What are some signs? Because I think a lot of times we're taught about stranger danger. And to be honest, stranger danger is not usually who molests children. Okay. So stranger danger is not usually who rapes. Stranger danger is not usually who does the things. It's usually someone you think you can trust. And the term I think is called, like, what's a tricky person, that I've seen on Instagram floating around, where it's like, how do you teach children, or what are some signs that are an indication that someone may be a predator or sexual predator, or someone who could possibly abuse children? Like, what are some things parents should look out for, you think?
So there's, I think, grooming behavior, right? I mean, that's the grooming behavior of, like, oh, I can help your daughter, with tutoring after school. And I'm not saying that's what everybody's there for, but when people are wanting to do extra things, or giving them extra attention, I think is a red flag.
Extra attention. Okay, but extra attention in like a way that seems excessive?
Excessive or off,
Okay.
But I think also just the child knows, like you can kind of, children have this innate ability to kind of sense it. Like when the kid doesn't want to hug somebody, don't let them hug them, right?
Yeah,
Like,
I don't force that. I don't
no,
force that. We don't have to hug. If she don't want to speak, she don't have to speak. She's not feeling it for whatever the reason is. That's her business, and she's
that's her business. And it's just trusting that, letting them also trust their gut. There is a whole host of signs, actually, of red flags that people can look out for. I don't know what they are right now. Off the top of my head, we have a survivor advocate at our office that actually does training for parents on that, of what you're looking out for. I just know that the grooming behavior, like where they try to make relationships with the parents, like they just try to get into the family. Again, I'm not saying you should be suspect of every person like that, but that is a red flag.
Well, you should be suspect of every person. Better safe than sorry. It's like once the train has left the station, it's gone, honey, and it's not coming back. I know a few because I'm paranoid and I research these things in an unusual way. But that is true, like you said, like the excessive attention. Wanting to isolate the child is a big one, like always wanting the child to be alone with them or offering to watch them all the time alone, or wanting to, like, it may seem nice, but there's like a way that people do those things. There were a couple other things. Oh, teaching your children that it's okay to say no to adults. And not because there was a woman, a reporter who wrote to sexual predators in jail to ask them what were some of the things that they used to access these children. And one of the men said that he knew that the child couldn't tell him no, because children are taught that they always have to respect adults and say yes to adults and trust adults. But it's important that they are okay with saying no whenever they feel unsafe, and teaching them about that. Another thing was never making like funny names for private parts, like calling private parts exactly what they are. Like, don't call it a little kitty cat. Don't call it a little pee-pee. Like, it's a penis, it's a vagina, it's a butt. Like, you need to say the words to them so that they know that this is what it is, because a lot of times predators will use kind of like, this is gross, but like pet names for the private parts of the children, where the children will think that it's like a good thing because it has like this cutesy name. So little things like that. I know that I try to employ, like, if my daughter doesn't want to hug anybody, I'm with you. You don't have to hug them. But I teach her that, like, nobody touches you here, nobody touches you there. If you don't want someone to touch you, tell them I don't like that. And if you have ever met my daughter, she's 2.5 years old, and she will say, I don't like it. Okay.
Yes. And I love that for her. She always says, she's like, I don't like it. And I even started saying it when I don't like something, I don't like it.
Right out. Like, there's no gray area, because a lot of the predators, because you have to think too, a lot of these predators are cowards. So when they get pushed back, they're not, there are some who are real, like, monstrous and will, still take advantage. But many of them are like just trying to kind of see how far they can push things. So if they meet resistance early, there are some stats that show that they typically will back off if the child is a bit more strong-willed and anti and very firm in how they feel. So those are some tips I can share for any of us, because it is definitely more than 50%. And I believe in protecting our children by any means necessary.
No, I agree. The other thing I think is important from like a parent perspective or a mom perspective is trust your gut. Like, sometimes you meet somebody, they give you that bad energy. Like, you're like,
hey,
and it's okay. And it's okay to say, you know what? I'm just not going to like talk to this person, or I'm going to move away. It's okay to trust your gut, and you don't have to worry about, I don't want to be rude, or I want to be nice.
Right.
Kind to everybody.
Like, do you want to not piss somebody off at the expense of your child's?
Never. Never.
Life.
It's okay. There's lots of other people.
Yeah, like I don't care who I'm offending. Like I don't care. Like I would much rather offend you than to have to pay the thousands and thousands of dollars of therapy it's going to take for my child to heal from this. I can't undo it once it's done.
That's
so
correct.
whoever has to get, like, I'm getting passionate because this topic for me is, let me tell you something. If I have to piss you off and never talk to you again because I feel something, I'm 100% okay with that.
Yeah,
like
you just
I
gonna
don't
have to
care
be
who has a
mad.
problem.
Be
Yeah.
mad, stay mad. I don't care. And also, too, I think this is where mothers and fathers of daughters and sons, because be clear, sons get molested too.
Very much so.
Their children, it is okay to express how they feel. This whole children should be seen and not heard BS, it's a no for me.
So much damage has come from that. So
From
much damage from silencing
so
children.
So much damage from the time my child could speak, and she's literally been speaking in full sentences since she was 1. I never spoke baby talk to her. I always wanted her to communicate what her thoughts, feelings, and emotions were. To this day, Danny and I laugh about it all the time because she talks so much. So much. She'll be 14 on the 9th. Wow. And for me, it's no, I need you to express yourself. And I need you to talk and say what works for you and what does not work for you. Do not teach them to be docile. So for me, one of the things I realized growing up in an environment where there was so much pedophilia and there was a lot of abuse, the one thing that I noticed is that there seems to be like an energy emission that happens, because with my high school boyfriend who was abused by not only his father, but also by the man who I was raised as my grandfather, is he would only pick and choose young men who they fit a certain mold. They all had this same energy about them. And because I understand energy now, I can pinpoint, okay, he would choose people who he knew would not say anything, who he knew wanted the trips and wanted the gifts and wanted the things that came with being one of his boys. And so there, I do believe, is an emission of energy. And I am not at all blaming the victim. I am saying, like sharks can smell blood, pedophiles can feel the energy of someone who they know won't say anything, which is why I tell people, do not teach your children to be docile. I have never, ever taught my child to just shut up because I'm an adult and I said so. Even though she challenges me, and dear God, because of how I was raised, challenging me is tough, because how I was raised, if you challenge an adult, you get hit, or you get beat, or you get knocked the hell out. Yeah. So I am constantly going against my own upbringing because I do not want her to be docile. I have no desire for her to be that.
Yeah, it's important. Yeah, it's important for children to feel like they have a voice.
Absolutely.
Because that voice can literally at least decrease the chances, or if it does happen and they weren't able to prevent it due to force, that they can come to you, and then giving them the opportunity to feel safe through your response can also just change the dynamics. There's so much things we can't control, right? As parents, there's so much that you can control, and there's so much more that you cannot. So I think the power comes from our response. Like the real opportunity for healing and connection with your children is how you respond, because you can do all the things and it still goes left, right? And it still happens. No one is expecting the father of a child to be their abuser. Like, you trust this person, you're around this person, like you never think it is who it is, right? That's just a fact. Like they don't have a smell. There's not a look. They don't have abuser stamped on their forehead. There's not a type of person that abuses as far as what they look like. Yep. It could be anyone. It could be someone of the same sex, of the opposite sex. There are a lot of studies that show that even older children molest younger children. And that's where many child abusers start, where the 13-year-old is molesting the 6-year-old. So there are just a lot of factors that play into it that make it very difficult to protect them. But I really want to advocate for the response of the adults. And I think that we could see such a different outcome if we knew that, if people who were abused knew that there was a safe place to go. We've been talking a lot about, the family aspect, and, you spoke about, your healing and the things that you've done. And one of the things that happen in these situations is your abuser doesn't apologize, right? Like that's just unfortunate, and sometimes we're waiting for the apology to get the forgiveness. Like we feel like once they apologize, I'll forgive them.
Mhm.
How have you been able to work on forgiveness for those who hurt you, even when they don't apologize or they don't admit to their wrong?
Because that's not going to do anything. You can get an apology and they can tell you they're wrong, but it actually will not really, affect the healing process.
Really?
Yeah. If
Why
your
do you
abuse
say that?
came to you and said, I'm sorry I did that, because the effects are still there. How you're feeling from it and the trauma that's already been caused is there. So I don't think an apology is going to get you to where you need to go. So that's great that they can recognize what they did was wrong, and that's great
Yeah.
for them, and that's helped them heal. But for you, you have to still do your own work to get to the next process. So for me, it's not, I don't need an apology. It's like the work that I have to do to heal myself. And that I think will create the forgiveness if you want to have forgiveness. I just don't think an apology is going to get you to your healing step. The apology is really for them.
I know a lot of people feel like once they get the apology, that's going to be that's all they need. And I'm sure many people are disappointed that they get the apology and they're still pissed.
And they're so pissed. Yeah, you're still like, wait, I don't feel any better. I'm, still affected by it, and you are still going to be affected by it until you take some action.
And would you say that you just have to, like you mentioned, with your cousin, that like they're still around, they're still there. Like how do you navigate that? And I know that I said that we had one more question, but you don't very much get to have people who are so open speaking about this. So I just want to make sure we're kind of dissecting and, taking out as much from it as possible. Just like, because I know so many people who they have to keep being in the environment of their abusers, even after the abuse has ended.
Yeah.
So what then? Like, how did you navigate that?
It's really by having like empathy. Before I realized, I kind of did what everybody else in my family did: forgive, forget, move on. Just forget about it. Pray, whatever it's going to be. Now I try not to get myself in those situations because I know it has a detrimental effect. But two, just having empathy for them. They're not there. They haven't taken any steps. They're still in that same place where if they just ignore it, maybe it'll go away. And just having empathy that they haven't taken the steps that they need to move on. So that's how I navigate it, is recognizing that I've gotten some tools, I've gotten some help to help me, and they just haven't gotten there yet. And so that kind of goes back to my first question about being the lover of life. It's like I want that so much for them, but I can't force them to have it. I can just kind of show them, what it's done for me by taking the actions that I've taken.
Wow, that's so beautiful. Thank you for saying that. We can end on that note because that's such a beautiful way to think. I feel like that gives so many people hope that you can still be a wonderful, successful human being who has it all. You can still get the spouse, you can still have a child, you can still live a very full life, not as a survivor, but as a thriver. And I just love that. So thank you for sharing that.
All right. Okay, so for our next segment, it is called the rapid fire. We like to end it with every conversation. So for this segment, you've got to answer in 3 seconds or less. We do not want you to think too hard about it. Just tell us exactly what your thoughts and feelings are. So For the first question, would you rather night out on the town or a wellness retreat?
Wellness retreat.
Okay.
Okay. Are you a staycation kind of girl or a trip abroad?
Trip abroad.
Okay. Would you prefer love or faith?
Love.
Okay.
And do you prefer talk therapy through like a therapist, or would you prefer coaching?
Oh, that one got me. I like both, but I think coaching.
Yeah, interesting.
I know. I do talk therapy and I do coaching. I think I just kind of want to move away from talk therapy.
I talk about it all. Okay, I'm talked out. I done said everything. Now what?
Now what do I do? We've talked, and now what? What are we doing?
Action. Yeah, we need to do something now. Okay,
Yeah.
I done said everything. Okay. And the final one is describe what joy means to you in one word.
My child, Maya.
Oh, yeah. They are quite special.
Yeah.
In all the ways.
Yeah.
Yes. No, thank you so much, Alreen, for sharing with us. I thanked you in advance because I just knew you were going to have so much to offer, and I was correct. So, just thank you for, helping women in this space, for being a voice, for being an activist for these women, and speaking up for them even before I'm sure they can even speak up for themselves in the space that you're in. We would love for you to let our listeners know where they can stay connected with you, where they can become a client, just, however they can access you.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, so you can find me on my firm website, which is haelaw.com, and happy to help them there. And then I have my personal website, Alreen, ALREEN.com. If they want to learn more and get on this healing path, they can get a free chapter of my book on the site, and hopefully get them on the path that they need to be.
Awesome. You can stay connected with me at the Danny Bordeaux, Danny DANI, Bordeaux is BOURDEAU. You can stay connected with Triggered AF at triggeredafpodcast.com, where you can listen to the latest episodes. You can go to triggeredafevents.com so you can stay abreast of all the things that we're doing. We have a wonderful event coming up in the spring of 2024 in the Sunshine State here where I am in Miami. So we just want you guys to be able to stay in touch with us and just know what's going on. So go to triggeredafevents.com. And Alicia, where can we stay connected with you?
You can find me all over everywhere at Alicia Reese, ALECHIA, last name Reese, REESE. And until next time, see you soon. Bye.
Bye.